Hey everyone, welcome back to Sarah's Vegan Kitchen. At long last, today I am sharing my recipe for homemade cultured vegan butter just in time for holiday baking season. If you're a fan of the cultured butter by Miyoko's Kitchen, this recipe tastes just as good. It's also customizable and it works out to be more cost effective if you're someone who purchases vegan butter quite often, like myself. You can find the printable recipe with detailed instructions linked on my blog in the description box below. The very first step is to create our cultured cashew cream to use as a base for the butter. For this, you'll need 1 cup of raw cashews, which you're going to soak for a few hours or overnight to soften up. I prefer to use cashews because they have a very neutral flavor, but if you don't like or you can't have cashews, you can also feel free to use almonds. You don't want the almond skins in your finished product, so you will want to purchase either blanched slivered almonds or soak some raw almonds overnight and pop the skins off by hand. Now, if you are trying to avoid nuts in general, you can also use raw hulled sunflower seeds, but just be aware that this will affect the flavor of your butter somewhat. Soak your nuts overnight and then drain and rinse them thoroughly. Transfer them to a blender and add 1 cup of water and then puree until completely smooth. High-powered blender is ideal for this task, but if you're using a regular blender, make sure your nuts have been soaked at least overnight to soften them up as much as possible. The next step is to culture your cashew cream. This process is what will give your vegan butter that characteristic, slightly tangy flavor that high-quality cultured dairy butters have. For this, you'll need to introduce some live cultures. If you regularly take probiotics, you can empty the contents of 1 or 2 capsules into your cashew cream. Alternatively, you can stir in a heaping tablespoon of unsweetened plain vegan yogurt. Cover your cream mixture and set it in a warm place for 3 to 4 days to culture. You can taste it periodically and move on to the next step as soon as it reaches a level of tartness that you're satisfied with. If you have an Instant Pot, you can also speed up this process by using the yogurt function. Add the cashew cream directly into the pot or place it on a rack above a couple cups of lukewarm water and allow it to incubate for 8 to 10 hours until tart. In a pinch, you can also simply use a pre-made, unsweetened, plain vegan yogurt in place of the homemade cultured cashew cream in this recipe. Whichever yogurt you choose will impact the flavor of your butter substantially. That's why I prefer to culture my own cashew cream. I just think the flavor makes for the most convincing butter substitute, but feel free to experiment. Once your culture has become as tart as you'd like it, it's time to blend it with the rest of our butter ingredients. You'll need 2 types of oil to achieve the right consistency for your butter. The first is a refined coconut oil, and refined means that the oil has been deodorized. It won't have any coconut flavor, which is ideal for this recipe. And the coconut oil will allow your vegan butter to be solid at room temperature. But if we were to use just coconut oil, the finished product would be hard as a rock when chilled. So, to give your butter the right texture, we'll also add a smaller amount of an oil that's liquid at room temperature. You can use any neutral flavored vegetable oil such as grapeseed, sunflower, avocado, or canola. And you can also use olive oil if you don't mind the flavor. The next ingredient you'll need is sunflower or soy lecithin. Most health food stores like Sprouts or Whole Foods will carry this, but I will also link it below in case you need to purchase it online. Lecithin is an emulsifier, meaning it will keep all of the cashew cream ingredients suspended in the oil rather than separating into layers. The final optional ingredient is salt. Now, if you plan to use your butter primarily for baking, it might be preferable to omit this, but if you're going to use it more as a spread, I do recommend adding a little bit. Simply add all ingredients to your blender and process for about a minute until everything's combined and the mixture starts to take on a light buttery color. Now you'll pour your butter mixture into a container of your choice to harden in the refrigerator. If you're planning to bake with your butter, it might be useful to refrigerate it in half-cup portions since that's the volume of a standard stick of butter, but if you'll mostly be using it as a spread or to sauté with, a glass storage container will work just fine. And this is where you can get creative. You can make your own fancy seasoned butter by adding in some herbs, maybe some garlic and onion powder. You could even go the sweet route and add some cinnamon and sugar. The sky's the limit. Just be experimental. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you make this recipe, as always, I would love it if you tag me in a photo of it on Instagram. Have an amazing week, and I will see you all very soon. Bye.